Hey there, honey bunnies. Welcome to episode 28 of Sovereign Storytellers podcast with your host, Michelle Wolf. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of lessons, that the universe or a deity is teaching us lessons, and until we get it right, until we learn the lesson, we won't make progress. And just as a disclaimer, there's no judgment here. So I used to think the same thing. And I'm just talking about how I see it, how I frame that. And it's absolutely no judgment whatsoever for anyone who finds that concept useful. This is more for people who don't find that concept useful. There's just another way to look at it. And I'm certainly not the only one to say that the concept of the universe teaching us lessons is, for some people, not useful. Let's put it that way. I'm always really careful to not say this is or is not a thing. It is or is not a thing for me. And it may or may not be a thing for you. So I think it's really important to keep ourselves from getting stuck in the dichotomy of right and wrong, good and bad, to always remind ourselves that this is just one way to see things. There's lots of research that 40 people can see an accident, and when you interview them, you get 40 different versions of an objective event that happened. The event happened. And 40 different pairs of eyes saw it, and 40 different pairs of eyes interpreted it and remembered it completely differently. So, everything I say on the podcast, just take it with a grain of salt. Like, this is the way I see it. So, that said, let me get going here. I don't like that concept of lessons. And I think that it comes out of seeing God as like a teacher, a person. Not to say that God's not an authority or however you see God, but all that is to me is very impersonal. Love is love is love. It's impersonal. It doesn't love you more or less if you do things right or wrong. It doesn't love you more or less if you're on this side of the railroad tracks or that side of the railroad tracks. It is just love. It doesn't approve or disapprove of you. And that's where I think we can get caught, is we think that we treat God as a parent figure because that's what we know. You know, the big people are the parent figures, and we interpret universal love still through the lens of I'm a child and that is a parent. It's bigger than me, therefore it must be a parent, therefore I must appease it and do everything right so that I can get what I want. So if we think of all that is as being love, but impersonal love, then there's no lessons. There's only natural laws. And that I do believe in. The law of gravity doesn't care if you believe it's a law or not. If you're on a planet that spins at a certain speed, you are held to the planet by the law of gravity. I don't think it's an arguable law. But I also don't believe the world is flat. And a lot of people really do. So that, there's that. My perspective is a law is a law is a law. And the law of attraction, although it has been, commodified and abused and misinterpreted and, held out as a carrot, like, well, your life would be fine if you were doing the law of attraction fine, so you must not have learned your lesson yet. Like, usually when that concept of you haven't learned your lesson yet, it usually comes with that tone of you're doing it wrong. If you were doing it right, you'd have all the money you need. You'd have all the love you want. You'd have, the shape of butt that you want if you were doing the law of attraction right. So since you don't have it, you must be doing it wrong. I've looked at it that way. I know other people look at it that way. And it's just kind of a way to shut things down when we say that. You haven't learned your lesson yet. Okay. A lot of people use that, and I know from my own experience and from experiences that my clients have brought to me and how that's been used against them. That's a way for us to shut it down so we don't have to feel or deal with the uncertainty of not knowing why something's not working. We really hate that. We really want to know what works and what doesn't work so that we can make sure that we do it right. This goes back a little bit to the just world theory, which you can Google. Go Google just, J-U-S-T, world theory. The just world theory posits that if we are doing it right, nothing bad will happen to us. And if something bad happened to you, that means you did it wrong. Because if it's just random, that means a bad thing can happen to me too, no matter how much I'm doing things correctly. You see, this is how rape victims and poverty victims and people who suffer get cut off. Well, you must have done something. Well, you must not have managed your money correctly, or you must have worn too short a skirt. Oh, I'm a guy that got raped. Oh, I'm assuming you weren't wearing a skirt. Right, I wasn't wearing a skirt. Oh, well, then you must have done something. You must be gay then. You must have done something. You must have drank too much. You must have been with the wrong people. Oh, you're poor because you clearly don't manage money correctly. Or you overextended your credit. Or you did something wrong. Because if poverty is a thing, then I have to think about it. And if I have to think about it, I'll have some feelings about it. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to not have feelings about your problem. You see? Using that concept, you haven't learned your lesson yet, or you've got bad karma from something shitty you did in your last life. That one really makes me laugh, although it's not really funny. So if you look at it, we have a number of different ways that we use to ask or demand that the people talking to us stop talking because it's making us feel something and we don't want to feel it. This is why I always am saying think less, feel more. If we can get comfortable with feeling, with emotion, with what it triggers in us when someone is having an emotion and we can't figure out why, then we don't have to shut them down by in effect saying, well, you haven't learned the lesson yet, which is in effect saying you're wrong and please stop talking now because you're making my stomach hurt. Right? It's very subtle, the ways that we sidestep emotion. And it's not wrong. It's been, and sometimes needs to continue to be for a while, a survival tactic. A strategy to make sure that we're okay and we can keep doing what we're doing without the distraction of your messy damn feelings. Of your feelings that make me feel, and I don't like it. We have to be careful how we're using that. So how I see the function of what's often labeled learning a lesson is you're in integrity with your wishes, hopes, and dreams, or you're not. Not integrity as in you're a liar, you're not a liar, but integrity as in alignment, or Corey Michelle calls it congruence. You're incongruent or you're congruent. You're in alignment or you're out of alignment. You're in integrity or you're out of integrity, and that's all it is. There's no room for a story in that. If I'm steering a boat, and I guess you don't steer a boat. You can see how much experience I have with boats. I'm not a boat fan. Okay, there it is. I don't like them. Anyway, let's say you're paddling a canoe. When you're paddling a canoe, you have to switch sides. You've got to tilt it and twist it and adjust it, and you're constantly moving to keep the canoe going where you want it to go. So if you're trying to go straight, but you're only paddling on the left side of the boat, then you're going to go in a circle, and you're going to keep going in a circle until you figure out you got to switch sides and you have to angle your paddle for the water. That's not learning a lesson. Only in the sense that there are some skills and techniques that you need to know if you want to achieve what you want to achieve. Some mysterious, can't see it, can't figure it out lesson you're trying to learn with no curriculum and no instructions, that's punitive. Saying to someone, I think there's some skills that you are capable of learning that you don't know yet or haven't mastered yet, and that's what's keeping you going in a circle. Let me show you how, with your permission, of course, to put your paddle on the other side of the canoe and then go back to the left and then go back to the right. Try that and see if that keeps you going straight longer. Okay, that's not a judgment. If I know how to change the oil in my car and you don't, your car being in bad shape because it has dirty oil is not a problem. You just need to know how to change your oil. Or you just need to know how to go to the place where they do it for you. When we say you must be learning a lesson or you must be in that pattern again because you haven't learned the lesson, there's just so much judgment in that. There's just so much wrongness in that. That's what I'm talking about. If you hold a magnet to metal, it's always going to attract the metal. It's the nature of it. I prefer the concept of these are just natural laws that we understand and we work effectively with, or we don't. And the only learning is learning how to adjust our techniques, our mindset, our daily practices and things like that so that we stay going straight down the river instead of spinning in a circle. There's no judgment there. There's just a learning process, which is different than lessons learned. You didn't learn your lesson. You got to learn the lesson before you can make progress. Yes and no. I'm always seeing how many ways we shut each other down. Coaches do it, therapists do it, family members do it, parents do it to children. People do it to people, we do it to our pets. And the underlying core reason for all of that is we're not comfortable with feeling. Feeling reminds us we have a body. Feelings create sensations in that body. We don't know them because we shut ourselves down when we were 3, 4, or 5. And so we don't want you to do it either because you're going to make us do it. If we have any empathy at all, somebody crying is going to make us feel something. The baby screaming at the grocery store is going to trigger us feeling something. We don't want to. There's no lessons, and karma is misused. The concept of karma is misused all the time. You were a thief and now you're going to be stolen from as a punishment. No. You were a thief and you may be stolen from because you have a belief that if, what goes around comes around. If you didn't have that belief, you wouldn't experience negative consequences of stealing. Look at any crooked businessman. They get away with it. They profit from it. They do very well because they don't have a story that what goes around comes around. They have a story that says, I'll screw you over before you can screw me over, and I'm going to make a lot of money in the process. And yay me, I won the game. So there's no consequences. Back to the just world theory. If you do something wrong, something bad's going to happen to you. It's not true. If you get raped, you must have done something to deserve it. Not true. If you rip people off, you're going to be ripped off. Not true. It's not true. Not in my viewpoint. A magnet always attracts metal. The sun on your skin, if you're out there too long, will always give you a sunburn. It's natural consequences, natural cause and effect, and there's no story. When it rains on you, you get wet. If you have a negative mindset, your life will feel negative. If you have a positive mindset, your mind will feel positive. If you jump off a cliff, you will hit the bottom. Natural law. If you're in a pattern that you've been in before and you recognize it, you've already made progress. All that means is you need to adjust your paddle. You need to switch it from the left to the right. You need to look at what it is you're trying to keep in place by repeating the same pattern. When I was younger, I had a rescuer pattern. I wanted to save everybody. I've quit saving people and now I'm stuck saving cats. I posted on my Facebook page a trail camera photo of this cat. Another cat. Sometimes it's dogs out here, sometimes it's cats. But anyway, when I was a kid, like 16, 17, 18, I kept falling into this pattern of trying to rescue people from their pain. I'm not going to go into specifics of what the pattern was. Let's just say there was a theme of people hurting, and I was always trying to help them, save them, get them out of that. And that never works. So I recognized at some point along in there that I kept finding myself in front of and inside of this pattern. And I had started learning about, I grew up with, my mom filled our house with all kinds of books and concepts. So I had just a smorgasbord of ideas around me all the time. Maybe that was a good thing. Maybe it was a bad thing. I don't know. It does mean that I can see a lot of different angles. But I recognized even then that, oh my gosh, here it is again. I'm in this pattern again. I'm inside of this thing that I now recognize, because now this is like the 6th or 7th time I'm seeing the same thing, different faces, different places, same theme. I wasn't quite sure what to do about it, except that my first step was to shut my mouth. Shut my mouth. Fermez la bouche. Probably said that wrong. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth, Michelle. I stopped saying, oh my God, I can't believe this. Oh my God, let me help you. Oh, hey, we could do this. We could do that. I can help you. Let me show you this. Let me show you that. Let's go over here. Let's go over there. Let's put out a lot of effort. Let's work harder than the person who was hurting, and that will fix the problem, which it never did. So my first step was to shut the fuck up and stop offering and just listen. And in the process of just listening, the person either made a choice to do something different or they didn't. And then I was aware I had to deal with my feelings of their response. I was aware that if they did what I knew would get them out of the situation, I was super jazzed. And if they chose to stay in their situation, I would feel super sad. this was like when I was really young, like I said, 16, 17, 18 years old, 19 years old, around in there. So then I had to get comfortable with other people having the freedom to make a choice that I agreed or didn't disagree with it, and that then I would have feelings about that I would have to deal with. This process took a while. But after, I don't know, maybe a couple of years, I stopped finding myself inside of that pattern. I would get further and further away from it. I was backing up and going, oh, hey, this sounds like that pattern. Whoops. Whoopsie, slipsy, back it up. Then I would start to spot that pattern coming at me before it was on my doorstep. Because I would hear the sounds coming from a person. And then I would feel the energy signature of that pattern before it ever landed on my doorstep, so that I stopped even looking at it. So I'd back up further and further. Eventually it disappeared, and I don't ever have that pattern in my life anymore in that way. I do still deal with it with animals. I do still feel responsible for doing something with animals, probably more so because they really can't make the same kinds of choices. I do think they have their own sovereignty too, but when they're on my doorstep, things get complicated. Yikes. So some people could say, well, you learned the lesson that you couldn't do anything about it. And that's true to some degree. That I learned through trial and error that I really couldn't help people break their patterns in the way that I was trying to help them then, when I didn't have any technical skills. Now I help people break their patterns, but it's much, much different, and they remain in the power spot, and I'm not affected by their emotions. I don't shut clients down. I'm not afraid of strong emotions, and nothing feels worse than to be emoting and have somebody shut you down. For me, it feels physically like someone punches me in the gut. I would rather get backhanded than be in the middle of emotion and be shut down. It feels really terrible. That's what happens when you tell a woman to just calm down when she's upset. And the net effect is you just threw a 5-gallon can of gasoline onto a fire. Now you've got a bonfire. It doesn't feel good. So be careful with that concept. I guess I haven't learned my lesson yet. Let's reframe that to, I guess I need to look at my skill set. That's where the learning can happen. Okay, let me back up and review. When was the first red flag that I ignored? What did I say or do, or how did I engage in the process of this current situation developing? Let me backtrack, and I can learn from that. And I can change course. And I can learn to put the paddle on the other side of the canoe. And then I will be skillful as I go through my life. So yes, we learn, and yes, we learn lessons, but we don't learn lessons, and we're not being punished by some mysterious force that we can't understand that is somehow trying to teach us something that we're too dumb to get. So I know that I'm nitpicking over nuance here, but I don't like seeing people getting hurt. That's a theme for my life. If I see someone getting injured by something and I can do something about it, then that's part of my commitment for being here. And all I can do is use these kinds of vehicles, podcasts and writing and things like that to say, there's a different way to do that. Maybe my way's not right or either, but it is another way of doing it that for me feels inspiring and hopeful rather than punishing and you're dumbifying, energetically telling people, well, you must be a little on the dumb side if you haven't figured this out yet, or there must be something wrong or broken, so let me fix you by offering you yet another whatever. Okay, I'm gonna stop it or I'll get off on a soapbox. So I hope this makes sense to you. There's a law of gravity. If I jump off the porch and I land on the ground and I keep doing that, I eventually figure out, okay, there's something that about the world that when I leap off a tall thing, I hit the ground. And it's consistent and it happens every time. So I guess I'll stop jumping off tall things. And you can say right in that moment, lesson learned. If I keep jumping off of things, I'm still in the learning process of what is effective and what's not effective, and there's no story to it. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe we can boil it down to that. Be careful when you're using that concept with the people around you, that you're using it in a way of you need some more skills and some more practice, and there's no story there, versus your repeated mistakes are making me feel things that I don't want to feel, so I'm going to flip this and shut it down by using this concept. I hope that makes sense. I really do. Okay, so business news. So you can check out now if you want. If you want to hear what's going on, business news, stick around for a few seconds. I have Sovereign Storytellers. The class opens up in July for enrollment. If you want to hear about that, go to the website, thatmichellewolf.com. Forest Reiki live stream classes are now scheduled for July, level 1 and level 2. We get on Zoom together live and we do the attunement, and I talk to you about the history and how to use it. There is a certification process to that. You can get certified for level 1 and you can take level 2 and get certified, and then you can go make money with it. You can go serve and be paid by working with others. I am going back to live streaming on Wednesdays at 9:30-ish Eastern on my YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/MichelleWolf11. So you can go click subscribe and then click the little alarm bell and you'll get a notice when I'm live there. Now, I haven't done it before and we're going to start next week. So be patient with me if there's technical glitches, which there always is, and that's okay. It's just part of being on the internet. And then the other thing is 2 types of human design readings are listed on the website now. The foundation, which covers your type, strategy, and authority. If you do nothing else, please do that one for yourself. Whether you do it with me or someone else, just running your chart is not enough to give you the skill sets that you need to use that information to change your direction in the river. You can check that out. And then the 9 centers reading is going through the 9 energy centers in detail so that you can maximize some knowledge there too. But start with the foundations reading. I'm super impressed with how it's changing my life and the lives of the people who are applying that knowledge. It's pretty cool. I feel like I'm forgetting something because, I do like 110 different things. The website's up to date. You can check it out. Get on the newsletter. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/thatmichellewolf. So there's all kinds of ways to keep up with what's going on in the Wolf Den. In the meantime, think less, feel more, play with these concepts, Ask yourself if you're ever using that concept against yourself or others. No judgment, but we do it in a way to not feel. Okay, I'll talk to you next week.